Hi everyone, welcome. I'm down here in my wormery, and the systems we're checking in on today are a pair of red wiggler worm bins, and they're exhibiting signs of some sort of an issue. It's an issue that we encountered on the neighboring bins as well. When we checked in on these bins a couple days ago, they had the same tracks on both bins. I'm assuming to some degree some of the tracks on the lower bin could just be worms that crawled out and ended up on the rim of the lower container, but here definitely signs of climbing on the walls. And I guess when we get the both systems up on the bench, we'll be able to see if there's, well, I could see it from here. Yeah, a little bit of evidence of climbing on the walls down there too. So I didn't panic. I figured, they're going to come due for their feeding soon enough, and today's that day. So today we'll get to check out what happened here. Maybe we'll see some signs of whatever it is that caused them to want to exit their system. I am curious about all that dry paper and cardboard, shredded stuff we blended in to try to dry the material. I wonder if that could have had something to do with it. Well, we're going to get these systems up on the bench and give them their scheduled feeding, and hopefully not find any signs of any sort of a major issue. So let's get to work. On the menu today is this nice big portion of potato peels from my freezer, and these two little packets of, I believe they're breadcrumbs, some sort of stuff that is presumably gone stale and for that reason been turned into worm food rather than human food. So before we get started, a couple bits of info about the systems. They've now reached 160 days of age, fed 12 times so far, and what we're giving them today is going to be feeding number 13, and it was 2 weeks, 14 days ago since the last check-in. And down here, the little triangle with the exclamation point just mentions the whole matter of worms climbing and all that fun stuff. So before we get started, since we've already had a chance to kind of check out the evidence of discontent residents looking to flee for whatever reason, I think it's a good idea to sort of take it down to a certain degree at least, so that at least if it happens again we can see it. This way it's not just masked by the previous occurrence. Hopefully it's not the sort of thing that's going to occur again. Luckily, when it's dry like this, it pretty much just flakes right off almost effortlessly. I'm just trying to take care to see if most of it can just go right back down into the bin instead of making a mess all over my bench. But I think that will do. So now, the other bins, the black bins that I fed 2 days ago, where there was also climbing evidence with all this stuff around the rims and on the walls, I didn't really see anything in the systems that led me to believe there could have been an issue. I mean, you never know. And just the fact that it happened in these two bins and those two bins over there, 4 separate locations, all possibly being, dealing with something that was in the bin, or more realistic to me seemed like some sort of external whatever was causing them some sort of discomfort and causing them to do what they were doing there. So that's the main reason I don't expect to find anything down within the bins that's going to explain the behavior. To me, it's most likely something that came from outside the containers, something happening either outside the window or right down here within the wormery. Who knows? I don't know. But at this point, I'm just glad it was sort of a one and done thing and not an ongoing issue that could have possibly affected all my systems, or some sort of other crazy mishap that could have occurred. I don't know. So I guess what I'm doing right now as I excavate down into the feeding areas, I'm kind of doing so in a somewhat methodical way, because I am very curious about the treatment that these systems got last time, which was for us to blend in a whole bunch of fresh bedding material, just like what you see here. A couple strips of paper, cardboard, whatever over here. But the stuff was blended in all over the place in both systems to see if it might help with drawing down the moisture level in these systems. And every now and then I just bump into a somewhat larger clump of material, which I just feel compelled to break apart a little bit if I can. To me, clumps like that seem like evidence of stuff that just has a little bit too much moisture and is sticking together due to that. And maybe other factors too, but whatever. I think so far I'm liking what I see. It just doesn't feel like systems that I would consider as overly damp anymore, which is definitely a departure from what we've observed in here recently. And obviously what led us to doing that whole thing of blending in dry paper and cardboard right down into the bed everywhere to serve as sort of like a sponge to suck some of that excess moisture into itself. And it also just seems like stuff that the worms really like, you know, because I mean you'll expect to find leftovers of that stuff floating around out here within the system, and you will for certain, right? There's a whole bunch of it right there. But I bet you a whole bunch of it also got consumed by the worms. Would not be surprised in the least about that. So I guess the only thing that I was able to really locate out of the feeding zone was those corn cobs. But as long as we started sort of exploring the remnants of the bedding that we injected into the system last time, I just figured let's just go all the way and really take a look at what's going on with that stuff throughout the system. And at the same time, you know, we're getting the opportunity to gauge moisture levels, which I think are really nice in here for sure. Very good. You know, I'm glad we sort of took the measures to, and I mean, even just taking the effort to sort of observe and recognize that there was just too much moisture going on, or what seemed to us to be perhaps a little bit too much moisture. And I do like the way the stuff is nice and crumbly for the most part. Little clumps here and there. I'm breaking them up as I encounter them. But not bad. Not bad at all. All right, let's just proceed over to doing the same thing here. Here it all still has this kind of glossy, damp look to it, but somehow this stuff, after I blended it all together, somehow has this much nicer appearance to it. Not sure how to explain it. And even just the way it all felt as it all, you know, readily crumbled in my hands. I did rewatch the video from our last check-in 2 weeks ago, and I do remember a comment that I made in which I did differentiate between the two systems. Did I not excavate the corn, or did I? I'm getting a little bit confused here as to what I've done so far in both systems. I was just kind of into the whole tilling up and stirring up of the material to inspect it, so I might have skipped over the excavation of the feeding zone over here in bin number 2, but I think it must have been here, bin number 2, that I might have observed perhaps a little bit more moisture content in the system than what we saw in bin number 1. And I'm also sensing clumps, little boulders that I feel like I'd like to break apart. But it probably wouldn't take a whole lot for this stuff to sort of mature to that point where it feels just like what's in bin number 1, where it would all crumble a lot more readily. I mean, I do really like the way it's all crumbling already, the way it is. Stuff seems really nice. Here too, I just found a little cache of shredded paper cardboard, which we're sort of blending in as we go along. I am still, yeah, I don't know why. I just got a little bit nervous for whatever reason, thinking that perhaps that large injection of dry down into the bed could have been the cause of their discomfort and the reason for them kind of exhibiting their behavior of kind of fleeing the bins. But yeah, I still have to continue to go back to that logic of, hey, you know, if it was something specific to these systems, then why are the worms in the other systems climbing too? So that just kind of dismisses that possible theory. So I'm not really on the lookout for anything that could have caused it, because to me it was just something outside of the worm bins. Alright, so let's start out with these unusual little packets of bread is what I assume that they are. I'm thinking that they're some sort of breadcrumbs or something, but I don't know for sure. Other than just opening them up here to give them to the worms, I've not looked at them much. What we're doing here is possibly the most I'm looking at them, but I think I've only got one more of these remaining up in the kitchen, so my only hope is that they're not full of salt or some sort of weird seasoning that the worms are going to be put off by. So that's my only reason that where I was thinking maybe I should taste this stuff, but you know what? It's too late now. I've already put it into numerous systems. And I've still got one more left, and I'm not going to taste that one either. I'll just give it to some bins somewhere, and I'll be rid of it. But it also kind of seems a little unusual. A little tiny handful of material, this much plastic waste. Ugh, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that personally, so whatever. That's my little rant for the day. So that paper towel we dropped down here and this napkin we dropped down here, not very generous as far as bedding goes, so I think we could tap into my supply of prepared bedding. And, you know, just for the sake of checking out, I think that these, I don't know, I can't remember if it was these particular chunks of corn cob that were maybe frozen, and we were wondering if the progress of them would be different due to the fact that they've been frozen, or am I getting those confused with the yellow buckets? I can't remember. One of the systems had these experimental corn cobs where we tried to soak them and then freeze them to see if any of that sort of treatment would help them break down more quickly than they normally would, because the pace at which corn cobs tend to break down is glacial. And anything you could do to speed it along is perhaps grinding it up. And that's an example here too. Peanut shells. Peanut shells are another definitely glacial material. And when you grind them up this way, definitely helps a lot. And I've done that with corn cob. I've actually taken corn cob and run it through the blender and created a kind of like a powder out of it practically, and fed it to the worm bins. And I just have to assume that this stuff breaks down a whole lot more quickly that way. Because, I mean, to say that there's no sign of it is not a good way to measure whether or not it's been consumed or not. It's kind of an assumption that it did, just because it got ground down to the size that fits neatly into a little wormy's mouth to help it. So, very nice. Yeah, I can definitely tell, you know, as I move this material around, it just doesn't resist as much. It doesn't hold together as much. It all just flows a lot more readily, and definitely like it that way. But I'm also kind of concerned. I don't want to see the material in these systems kind of swing in the opposite direction of suddenly becoming too dry either. Because right now it feels like they've kind of hit the mark, you know, they're right on target. I suppose we could better protect them from moisture loss and evaporation with more robust covers. I don't know. We'll just continue as is for now and treat the overly damp condition as solved and resolved. And also, luckily, no signs of any permanent issues as a result of whatever it is that caused these little guys to want to flee their systems. So, to me, that was a good check-in. All right, everyone, that's it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.